Hello, everyone. I've got a new podcast for those of you who want to pepper your week with little nuggets of ancient wisdom and delight. It's called Beside the Fire, and every week you can get 3 ancient short stories and fables crafted in beautiful audio format. Go to besidethefire.substack.com to check it out, or follow the link in this episode's description. Thanks for listening. Here's more methodically processing systems. Welcome to methodically processing systems. You're walking through a sun-dappled forest at the end of your long day at work, and suddenly you hear a shuffle in the bushes. Before you know it, you're surrounded by a wizard in purple robes and a bard carrying a little lute. They greet you and tell you that they want to show you a magic trick. And again, before you know it, they've managed to make an entire tree disappear right before your eyes. You're delighted by their trick and compliment their skill. You get back on your journey home with a bit of a pep in your step. That was a cool trick, and you want to make sure you tell your partner all about it. Alas, once you get home, you realize that while the wizard and the bard had delighted you with their disappearing tree trick, they had also managed to pickpocket $20 whole off of you. Now, of course, you're a bit ticked off. You wanted to spend those $20 on a movie ticket or two for you and your partner. When you finally sit down in a chair to mope, your partner convinces you that it could have been a lot worse. Much worse. Besides, at least the wizard and the bard managed to give you some delightful entertainment while they pickpocketed you. They could have beaten you up, or even murdered you in the process. But having been fooled by a couple of clever thieves in a forest irks you more than you expect. You're angry. You don't like being made to look like a fool. So for the next few years, you walk home through the forest every evening, hoping to see the wizard and the bard and teach them a lesson. And you'll definitely make sure you get your $20 back. At the very least, you'll settle for some good old-fashioned revenge. Nothing happens for a while until one night, and by now it's winter, the sun-dappled forest at the same hour looks more like a moonlit forest of horrors. On that eerie night, you see what looks like a wizard and a bard sitting around a campfire, drinking and singing. You approach them hoping that they will recognize you. They don't. They look at you, and for a moment, it looks like they might recognize you, but then the bard asks you who you are. You ignore the question and ask them for your $20 back. They look at each other puzzled. They claim they don't know what you're talking about. You grow impatient, and you tell them that if they don't give you your $20 back, you'll hurt them. Or worse, you'll kill them. No one makes a fool of you. They look a little bit more concerned now, especially since you've suddenly procured an axe. The wizard reaches into his pocket and rummages around for a while. And he pulls out a few coins and says this is all that he has. The bard does the same and empties his pockets, showing you a few old gold coins. These coins may be worth far more than $20, but you're not familiar with them. You tell them you want your $20 back. But they stumble over each other to say that they've never met you before and can't have your 20. They offer you everything in their possession, including their drinks. but you don't believe them. And before you know it, your axe is bloody, and the wizard and the bard are no more. You don't even bother to take their coins. You hide their bodies, and you make your way back home. Weeks later, you take your partner to a magic show that you've booked. It's going to be a good show. Everyone's talking about it. Some really world-famous magicians everyone has been talking about are going to be there. These magicians, they knock your socks off with their act. The crowd goes wild. The duo are dressed like a wizard and a bard. As you look closer, you realize that the magicians are exactly the same people who had pickpocketed you a few years ago while making a tree disappear in the forest. They even make a tree disappear right on stage. After the thunderous applause, the duo give a speech. Many years ago, they were poor and destitute, but they knew that they loved magic. One day, out of desperation, they decided that they need money to get out of their nasty state. So, they went through a local forest and pickpocketed an innocent person walking through that forest. They used the $20 that they stole to buy supplies to put together the act that made them world famous and rich. But to this day, they still feel guilty. So, with every act, with every show, they donate 20% of all their income to impoverished children in the area. They only wished that they knew the identity of the one person that they had pickpocketed. They wanted to return his money with interest. As you hear all of this, you start to shrink in your chair. You realize that over $20, you may have murdered an innocent wizard and a bard in your local forest. The story of the wizard and the bard illustrates that in a complex world, even a bandit can bring net positivity to the system, while someone who makes an honest living can, with one single act, undo all of their good deeds. The magicians, in the guise of a wizard and a bard, stole a sum total of $20 from you. But they used that $20 to create something new, something that didn't exist before in the entire world. A magical act that created a sense of delight in the people who experienced it. This new thing that the magicians created was so good that people were willing to pay them money for it. Not only were they willing to pay money for it, but they were willing to go off into the world and create other new things so that they could trade it in exchange for the money to see this act. In other words, the act actually motivated people to be more productive, to do things in order to be able to afford to see this magical act. They would be doing things that they might not otherwise engage in, all just to see this wondrous, wondrous magical trick. Our two magicians made their community and the world that they lived in richer, far beyond the $20 that they had stolen from you. In fact, you could argue that they gave you a wonderful act in exchange for your $20. Remember that you walked away from that act with a bit of a pep in your step. Considering that you paid hundreds of dollars now to see this magical act on stage, you may have actually gotten your money's worth those many years ago. In a bizarre way, the two thieves are more intelligent actors than you are in this make-believe story of ours. They do a little bit of harm to you, that is, taking your $20, and turn that into a great deal of wealth not only for themselves, but also for their community. You, on the other hand, didn't manage to make yourself any wealthier or any better off in the process. But not only that, but you managed to rob your community of a real wizard and a real bard. Indeed, in the complex world, there are three kinds of intelligent people. There are people who incur some small loss to themselves, but in the process give a bigger benefit to others around them. There are also people who benefit themselves and others through that same process. And surprisingly, there are people who do a small amount of harm to others, but still get much bigger benefits for themselves. In other words, they take something small and manage to get a lot more out of it. And even though it all goes to them, because they are part of that community, they are making the net system better off. These three types of intelligent people basically bring about a net gain to the overall system, whether it's through helping themselves, helping others, or helping themselves and others at the same time. On the other hand, there are people who harm themselves a lot for very little to no gain for the people around them. There are also people who harm themselves and others. And finally, there are the people who harm others for very little gain for themselves. This latter kind of person is exactly the kind of person that you were in our fictional story. In doing so, this second group of people, we can call them stupid people perhaps, are bringing a net loss to the overall system. So the next time that you decide to do something, take a step back and ask yourself, what kind of person are you going to be with the actions that you're about to take? Will you be an intelligent person, or will you be a stupid person? Thank you so much for listening to Methodically Processing Systems. Just as a reminder, if you want to pepper your week with little nuggets of ancient wisdom and delight, then please check out my new podcast, Beside the Fire, at besidethefire.substack.com. You can also follow the link in this episode's description. Thanks again for listening.